Hi, welcome to Minipod with Dave Jacobs of Small Church Pastor. No fluff, just good stuff in under 5 minutes. A while ago, a pastor wrote me and asked me this question. How do you balance pastoring the current flock and evangelizing in your community? How do you recruit people in your church to help with both? Now, certainly no one would argue that it's the pastor's job to pastor, but what we can't agree upon is whether or not it's also the pastor's job to grow their church and evangelize in their community. In other words, is evangelism or church growth inherently embedded in the call to pastor? Some pastors say yes, and some say no. Now, if I were coaching this pastor who asked me these great questions, I would begin by asking, number one, what does evangelizing in your community look like to you? Number two, where did you get the idea that this is part of your call? Number three, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being lowest, how gifted are you as an evangelist? Number four, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being lowest, how passionate are you about evangelizing in your community? Now, there's nothing necessarily wrong if you scored yourself low for these two questions. I've spoken to a lot of pastors who are just laboring under this expectation that it's their job to reach new people and to grow their church. Some churches actually have this written into the job description they agreed to when they accepted the call to their current church. But let me briefly comment on the two questions that this pastor asked me. First of all, he said, how do you balance pastoring the current flock and evangelizing in your community? Now, I don't think this is a problem if your gift mix includes being an evangelist. Some pastors have this mix, but most, in my experience, don't. Now, every believer, pastors included, has a responsibility to know how to share his or her faith and to do so when an opportunity presents itself. If my understanding of Ephesians 4:11 and 12 is correct, the pastor's job is to train and equip the believers to do the work of ministry. Now, this probably would include how to share their faith, which I'll comment on in just a second. So if your gift mix does include evangelist, you're going to want to make room in your week or your month to exercise that gifting. This may be as simple as spending time in the community, getting to know people, or it may look like something else, but it's got to look like something. Perhaps a starting point would be to set apart 10 to 15% of your time for this. Now, the second part of this pastor's question was, how do you recruit your people to participate in church growth and evangelism? Now, this is the hard part, isn't it? I mean, discover this, bottle it, sell it, and your phone's not going to stop ringing with people wanting you to speak at their next How to Grow Your Church conference. Now, once again, if I were coaching the pastor who sent me this question, I would begin by asking, are you aware of anyone in your church who has the gift of evangelism or is just passionate about people coming to know Jesus? If your answer is yes, then let me suggest you get these people together in a room, buy a couple pizzas, and have them prayerfully come up with as many ways possible to spearhead evangelism in your church. If you answered, I don't know, then ask yourself, how might I find out? How might I discover these kind of people? If your answer is, we don't have anybody in my church that's passionate about reaching new people, then you must determine what the problem is. Try this on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being high. How certain are you that this is simply a matter of re-educating or re-envisioning your congregation about evangelism, personal evangelism, church growth, and whose job it is to reach new people? How might you begin the educating process? Once again, this is Dave Jacobs of Small Church Pastor. We'll see you next time.